Welcome to Pario magazine, where I chat with individuals who have a desire to create. Today, I'm joined by an Australian wrestler who has been making waves in Queensland and throughout Japan, and even a sneaky US TV cameo. He's a former two-time IPW heavyweight champion, one-time IPW unified champion, and a one-time UPW featherweight champion. Welcome to Pario magazine, Zeke Andino.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. We're here today to chat about your journey through the world of pro wrestling. But before we dive into that, do you want to give our audience a little intro as to who Zeke is away from the wrestling ring?
Um, Geez, just the average bloke living life, pursuing a dream in wrestling. Like I guess wrestling is my life. So outside of the ring, everything I do revolves around wrestling. It revolves around trying to become a better person, a better physique in the gym, diet right, market yourself. Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen you're at the gym quite regularly, and obviously on the Gold Coast, that tan is always pretty solid. It's not super pale at times.
yeah. Bondi Sands helps out sometimes too, if I need it.
Yeah, always a nice little safety
Little
net
touch.
and keeps you out of the sun too in the peak of summer, I guess.
That's it.
So how and when did the passion for wrestling first develop?
It would have been around that 5 to 6 year old range. All I recall is my parents got Foxtel or Ostar back then, and I had no sense of television programming. But I remember watching wrestling popped up one day. I can't recall what match it was. WWE. I can't recall what the match was or anything. But I just remember becoming obsessed with it. But because I had no sense of television programming, I just thought whenever I switched the TV on, no matter the channel, no matter the time of day, wrestling would be on. I then learned that it was on, twice a week. The replays are on the weekends. And I was just obsessed from the moment I watched it, and the love never drifted away. Yeah, so some people obviously grow out of it. I feel like that's like a story that's told pretty regularly.
Mhm.
But for the people that are doing it, they never fell out of love with it.
Yeah, you didn't even have like the high school drift away from wrestling and then come back to it?
No, man. So like in 2007, when WWE toured Australia, I went and watched Raw, which in Brisbane, which I think was around August. And then I believe a few months later, SmackDown were doing their tour. And I recall SmackDown always being a bit of an edgier show, maybe a bit more swearing, and just the era that it was in. And
Mhm.
there was a certain storyline or storylines in that sort of bit where I freaked out, and Dad bought tickets. I'm like, oh my god, I don't want Dad to see this like explicit stuff. Not no, I had no idea what house shows were. When I rocked up to the Raw house show, we thought we got stung. Like we're just like, what the hell? We've just spent all this money. There's no commentary team. Like this is weird. Like there's, but
No
so
big Titantron and all of that sort of
yeah,
stuff. Like, what's happening
and,
here?
and it didn't click. It still didn't click after that show. Like I was like, oh my god, SmackDown's going to be crazy, and like there's going to be swearing, and like back then like the divas, like what they were sort of doing. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to go. Like I'm just a kid, and I'm going to drag my dad along to Brisbane. So I said, oh, I don't like wrestling anymore. And we sold the SmackDown tickets via the newspaper. And for there was probably 2 years where I would sneakily watch wrestling, but the love never went away. It was always just trying to find little ways where if my parents were like like going for a day trip somewhere, I'd be like, oh yes, I'm gonna watch the Saturday highlights. But no, the love just grew for it. Like my mates loved it. We would be in the courtyard wrestling, like doing like the AA, like onto the grass at school. Yeah, and that's when we started watching the pay-per-views too. And so it'd be like after school on a Monday, we'd stay off social media all day, and then come around to my house, watch the pay-per-views, and yeah, it just that passion really grew through my childhood.
Who were some of those early favorites?
The early favorites would have been John Cena, uh, Rey Mysterio, Triple H, Shawn Michaels was one of my all-time favorites.
Mhm.
So they were the early days. Then it transitioned into I loved Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan. They're probably the two at the top of the list, like two of my biggest inspirations.
Yep. Yeah, Rey Mysterio doesn't surprise me with your sort of high flying style, and then even Seth Rollins makes a lot of sense as well. I think you kind of blend
Yeah,
a lot of those two together.
yeah, I try to. They're both very athletic though. Yeah, so hard to live up to.
So then, how did you sort of learn about Australian indie wrestling, and then what pushed you to go from sitting on the fan side of the guardrail and going and training?
So I had no concept of indie wrestling, and once again, I don't know why things just didn't click for me when I see stuff. So there's the same thing with the like no sense of television programming. It took me so long to understand. Okay, it's on a set time on a set day of the week. So I remember scrolling through social media, and I would, looking back, it's like I would see Ring of Honor clips and other independent wrestling, but for some reason, I just never clicked that there's wrestling outside of WWE. And then yeah, through the teens, like 16ish is when I started to learn about independent wrestling. And then I mean, I distinctly remember the moment that made me look up how do I become a professional wrestler. It was the Royal Rumble, 2015, I believe. It was John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins triple threat.
Mhm.
And that specific day, we had a family barbecue. I said I was sick when I wasn't because I wanted to stay home and watch the Royal Rumble. Um, and the exact moment was when Seth hit the flying elbow to Lesnar through the table. I don't know why, but that just like sparked me to Google search, how do I become a professional wrestler? WikiHow comes up or whatever that website is, and it gives you like the step by step. I'm like, oh, there's this thing called there's wrestling schools and independent wrestling. So I just typed in, I think it started off with Queensland wrestling, and then the search results come up via like closest location, and IPW came up. I'm going, oh my god, there's a local wrestling school. Like it just opened up this whole new portal to yeah, wrestling. And that was in grade 12. So it was then nearly a year after the Rumble. I started in March of 2016. That was in 2015. So March of 2016 was when I started. But that whole year, I'm like, I am starting wrestling training once I finish school. Um, yeah, so I finished school in November of 2015. 2 days later, I flew down to Victoria to work with my uncle to save up money to start life after school. And yeah, and then once I did, 3 months of work, came home and signed up to IPW.
Awesome. And yeah, I guess now that we look at IPW, like some of the talent that has come out of there, it was a good school to find. Thankfully, you didn't find one of the kind of disreputable, crappy ones.
Yeah, yeah. Now they have a great reputation, and they've been around for so long, and sometimes I feel like a bit overlooked. Like the amount of talent that has come out of IPW is pretty unreal. Even though, like you have the few that have gone to that next level. Like if you just look at the Queensland and Australian scene, like we've had some phenomenal people come through.
And sort of last or 2024, still this year, was a really big year for you. Sort of went over to expand out of Australia and went over to Japan to wrestle for Big Japan Pro Wrestling. How did
Yep.
that all come about?
That was a lot of luck. So it started the Japan. Uh, Originally getting to Japan, I have a mate in Tasmania who was training over there, and he reached out and he just said, "Hey man, like there's this tournament going on. Reach out to this person and send like your resume if you want to be a part of it." And like without hesitation, Japan had been ever since I watched Omega and Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. I
Mhm.
was just obsessed with like that style of wrestling, and Japan was the goal. So when he messaged me that, I instantly got sent like my resume and all that, and got accepted into this junior heavyweight tournament. And through that, I just went and yeah, I planned my Japan trip. I bought my flights, accommodation, and I like tried to market myself. Like made my own Instagram graphics to say like I'm going to Japan. And because of that, I then attached the image. I just started emailing all these Japan promotions. Like, geez, there'd have to be like 50 plus emails, and I just sent emails and said, "Hey, I'm coming to Japan." Like, and I attached the image, the graphic of announcing my match or whatever. And I just think that since they just saw that I was coming over, Big Japan responded, and this is something like that was like 3 to 5 years of getting turned down. Like I'd
Mhm.
sent emails for 3 to 5 years. You either don't hear a thing or it's a no. But I think it was just luck and timing. Because that period of the year through Christmas and New Year's is a very busy period wrestling wise because Wrestle Kingdom's at the start of the
Yep.
year. So everything leading up in December and January is it's so busy, especially in that Tokyo area. So got a hold of Big Japan. We got in contact and then did a few shows. And then whilst I was over there, they must have sort of liked what I was doing because then they wanted to extend my tour. And that was just a no-brainer, obviously. So I just yeah, cancelled my original flight home, which was the day after Wrestle Kingdom, and extended it like another 5 weeks or so.
Yep.
And ever since then, just had a great relationship with him.
Yep. And then went back for a second tour later in the year as well.
Yeah, so yeah, the first one was December 22nd to February 5th or February 6th, around those dates, and then went back a few months later for another 5 week tour around like April, May. Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you think sort of people like Robbie Eagles doing quite well over in Japan in recent years has sort of made a lot of Japanese promotions and promoters go, "Oh, hang on, there's a totally untapped market here. What talent are out there that we could potentially bring in and pluck the next Robbie Eagles out of Australia?"
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's no denying the groundwork that like people like Robbie has done. I definitely want to mention Jackson, like what
Yep.
he's done for Australian wrestling in general. Like, I couldn't comprehend what he's done until you have in-depth conversations either with him or people that have trained under him or friends with him. Like, you just get told he trained with Jonah and then it's like, and then like, some of the boys in TMDK, and you're like, oh, that's cool. But then it's just like, no, because he trained this person and this person's a descendant of this person, but then he also trained this person, and he's done like what he's done for Australian wrestling is phenomenal. So yeah, like people like that, Robbie, some of the other people that have toured Japan, like not New Japan, but just other companies in general. Of course, yeah, I think they see a bit of an untapped market, and I guess yeah, it's of interest. But at the same time, it's also the commitment. Maybe like I was going over and I was
Yep.
showing that I wanted it, and yeah, I think that paid off too. But yeah,
Yeah, I think that is also a big thing. Like, hey, I'm here. You can potentially put me on a show if you have a slot, and it's kind of that extra little like buzz of, look, we have an international guy here
yeah,
for this show.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But and I think yeah, Australia being close now, like it is, like close to Japan, it is that I mean, it's perfect for us to have that sort of connection with Japan and vice versa. Yeah,
Yeah, it
and
makes
you've seen it recently with UGG and the Velocities and the Fleet Brothers going over. It's a pretty cool bond that we have, I think, and something that the growth in future years will be epic to see.
yeah, and even like some of the girls like Tony Storm
Yeah,
really made her name in Japan. We've seen Lena Cross in recent months
just
doing
about to
great over
say,
there. Charlie
yeah,
Evans had a run in Japan as well. Like, it's kind of the
they're
place to be,
smashing it.
and like it makes a bit more sense for Australians to go to Japan. It's a much more easy flight. It's not 15 hours, a very expensive flight, and then you have all of the US regulations and stuff as well.
Yeah, and I feel like just because of like the whole like I don't know what like aura that Japan has. If you can go to Japan and stand out and make a name for yourself, I feel like that's so much more. important to it's maybe more valuable to be able to go over there and in a top sort of company, you can stand out and make a name for yourself. It can become sort of easier to become more recognizable and recognized everywhere else. Like, yeah, as you just said, like Lena Cross is smashing it. Like, she's everywhere.
She's everywhere now.
Yeah, but like she's just just returned to Japan, and she's won the tag titles, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, so like it's unreal, and that buzz just follows through. Because I see like mates that I've made over there who are from the States, and they're doing well in Noah, and that buzz just carries over back home to America. It's like, oh wow, like this bloke's killing it in Japan, and yeah, the momentum follows.
And you sort of also did sort of carve a bit of a place for yourself and make a name with getting a big Japan Junior Heavyweight Championship match at the end of that first tour.
Yep.
How was that experience to have that match and have it in sort of one of the most iconic venues of Korakuen Hall?
Yeah, that was unreal. That's like a dream come true. That's something where you sit down at the start of your wrestling career, but like before the wrestling career starts, and you dream of doing this, and you list off Madison Square Garden, and then there's Korakuen Hall, the Tokyo Dome, but these like Wembley, all these famous arenas, right? And the you can believe it. To each their own. Sometimes it just seems so far fetched, and you're like, "Wow, like, is this actually gonna work out?" And then I was definitely not expecting it that trip, but once I got my foot in the door in Japan, I was like, "I have these opportunities." But just by chance, it was the end of my first tour, and unfortunately, there was a title match scheduled. Injuries occurred, and they said, "Hey, this is your opportunity to to fight for the BJW Junior Heavyweight Championship." So it was surreal, man. Like just uh, the most nervous I'd ever been in that locker room. You're about to go toe to toe with two of the like top wrestlers in Japan in general, like not just in Big Japan, but in Japan. And these guys, one guy was my mentor the whole trip. The other guy I went toe to toe with many times, and yeah, it was. I'll never forget that. It's one of the best moments of not only not wrestling but my life.
It's one of those
Yeah,
classic like wrestling things of it's not really happening until it's happening, and then once it's happening,
yeah.
like if someone opens that door just a little bit, you have to kick it in and really show out as much as you can.
I was so grateful, and It was probably better that it happened at the end of the trip because going to Japan was such a big deal for me, and it took a while to adjust. And so by the time that the end of that first trip came around, I was telling myself to like, you're going out with that fight mentality, like you'll want to win, but also soak it in. Like, don't rush the entrance. Look around, soak in this moment, and remember it because it is special. So I'm glad that I could sort of push. I was very nervous, but I could push that aside for a second when I made the walk to the ring. And yeah,
And are there hopes to sort of go back to Japan in 2025?
definitely, yeah. Nothing's locked in, but it'll probably be sometime sometime after PWL, the Super Show, and AEW. So it'd be pretty shortly after that, and maybe a quick stint before then. Maybe kick off 2025 and maybe even end 2024 on a good note and kickstart 2025 in Japan. And yeah, but if not, definitely Feb.
So then, yeah, like with AEW and Pro Wrestling League coming up, one other thing I wanted to ask about was there was a little cameo on an AEW
Yeah.
TV episode recently with a sign telling Tony Khan to book Zeke Andino. How did that come about, and what was your reaction to seeing that?
The reaction was like my jaw dropped and it just seemed unbelievable. Like you get the Instagram notification that so and so has mentioned you in their Instagram story. Coincidentally, it was a person that I knew from UPW on the Sunshine Coast around 5 or 6 years ago, and she used to do these backstage interviews for us.
Mhm.
And we bonded just over Japanese wrestling. Like she loved it, and but then she pursued her career of singing, and I went sort of. I think I might have went back overseas or something. Like life happened, like COVID and all that, and then years later, I see that she's moved to America and she's married, got a husband, and they're both like singing and all that. And like no contact was made. And then after my second Japan tour, I think there was, she just like reached out, congratulated me, and we just sort of vaguely caught up on life and what she's been up to. And that was that. That was like 6 or so months ago, and then yeah, that day came around where just you get the Instagram notification, and I see that she's gone to a Dynamite episode and tried to help me out, which I'll forever be thankful for, like because that's just unreal that someone could be so thoughtful to do something like that. So I'm so appreciative of that, and the momentum that I got from that, and like the traction that I got was unreal. So just trying to keep that going.
Yep. Yeah, I remember I was sitting down watching that episode and I was like, "Wait, did that just say what I think it said?" And yeah, it did. After rewinding it and seeing that, I was like, "Oh, it actually did say book Zeke Andino."
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah, it's unreal. I know that's like not the first sign that's ever been made for a wrestler, but I've noticed a few like the trend has sort of caught on now, because I've noticed some of my mates from the States, I'll see like a picture online now. It's like, hey, Tony, like book JJ Garrett, who's someone I met many years ago, and like there's a few other signs. So which is awesome. Like that's so good for us, man. Like, and I maybe in a selfish way, but that just helps us get exposure, and that's it's not something that we just think whatever. Like we're also appreciative of the support that we get from peers, fans, people that want to follow our journey.
And then obviously with AEW coming to Brisbane in February, how are you feeling ahead of that? And obviously, is there a hope that that sign will kind of lead to something?
Yeah, definitely. Like I feel like people probably hate that I'm referencing Jake Paul, but I was listening to a podcast many years ago, and like you can hate him all you want, but like the success and determination that he has led him to many great things. And but he said I believe it was a delusional optimist or something. Like you got to be delusional to chase a dream, but you got to be optimistic about it. So like I'm no idiot in thinking I like I'm not expecting the verse Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay in a marquee match. I'm not even expecting to be on the show, but I'm going to work my ass off to get on it, and I'm going to do everything possible marketing wise. I'm going to do everything with the connections I've made. I'm going to find as many emails as I can and do whatever it takes to get on the show. And if not, then that's okay, because already the traction that I got from that one sign at AEW has been unreal. So yeah, but yeah, I'm hopeful, man. I'm not gonna be down on myself or think negatively. Like you've got to have that law of attraction. Like it's gonna happen. Like I'm gonna be on AEW Suncorp Grand Slam at Brisbane.
Yep. Yeah, even if it's just like some sort of like a security guard role or something for like a pull apart thing. Like we've seen so many amazing wrestlers get in the door that way and then go on and
100%. That's
main
how
event
it
WrestleMania
starts.
or something.
That's how it starts. And AEW was like built on being that alternative, and like giving uh wrestlers a chance that might not have got a chance elsewhere, and that they do that through AEW Dark and all that, and like I just every week I see people that I trained with at Black and Brave, people that I met along the way over in the Midwest, and every week I see them on AEW Dark, I see them on Ring of Honor television, getting these opportunities, and that's what AEW was built on. So I mean, why not give one of the local boys a shot?
Yep. And then obviously, if you can't get onto the Suncorp show, there is Pro Wrestling League the night before with Renegades of Wrestling co-promoting
Yeah.
a super show. What are your goals for that event? And is there like a particular person in Australia that would be the dream matchup for that show?
I haven't so much thought of dream matchups. Like it really, geez, yeah, it depends like who's on it. Like that, they're yet to really make many announcements.
Or someone
So
that you think would be a great opponent to showcase and potentially be like, hey, Tony, look, this is what we can do. Put us on as a dark match before the show starts.
it would be the local boys. Oh man, jeez. See, I've got so many brothers that I wouldn't want to leave out. Like you got EC Diamond, love EC Diamond,
Yep.
love Dick Riggs, love One Shot Rider, love Tim Hayden. Like any of those boys, like we grew up on the scene together. We're all we're the local guys, so yeah, there'd be those guys. But then yeah, with Renegades, like geez, they have a pretty deep talent pool too. So
Hmm.
to go up against someone there, why not? Like, Ugg wrestles there, doesn't he?
He does. Yes.
I mean, he just got back from Japan too, so yeah, I wouldn't mind versing a heavyweight and having a crack there. So yeah, the talent pool's so deep. Yeah, I don't have a direct call out, but I can assure you that any of the people that I just named, and of course more, like if there were scouts there, they wouldn't be let down, and I
Hmm.
already know that the fans aren't going to be let down regardless either. But my
Yep.
goal is to just show up and show out there. Yeah, my goal is to steal the show. As cliche as that is, everyone says it when there's a big show. They want to steal the show, and that's a great mindset to have. I'm the one that's going to do it though, and I'm going to get that attention somehow, and keep going forward in my career.
Yep. Yeah, and they've been saying anyone or anybody from anywhere could show up. So even like maybe like a Dante Martin or somebody like that would be an awesome opponent for you.
Yeah, that's it, man. Like as you just said, and like you got like even the Aussies, you got Aussie Open
Yep.
that could show up. Love to have a crack against Fletcher or Davis. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think I'm maybe more excited for that Pro Wrestling League show than I am AEW at this stage.
Yeah, that's gonna be something special. That's gonna yeah set the benchmark pretty high. It's gonna I think that, like just the hype. Like a match hasn't been announced, and
Yep.
it's pretty much sold out. So you know, it's gonna be pretty epic.
Yep. Yeah. Everyone stay tuned for matchups and all of that sort of stuff. It's a very exciting period in Australian wrestling and Queensland wrestling who have been on the up recently.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, as we let you go, where is the best place for people to support you and track the creative journey and see all of these future matchups and announcements coming up?
Always active on Instagram at Zeke Andino, ZekeAndino, and then that's just the same on X and Facebook too. Got a couple YouTube videos lined up that I'll start posting like little vlogs and stuff again, which is something I used to do. Post matches on there also. So yeah, I'm across all socials. I'm pretty active on them all, but Instagram's the main one at the moment.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I will see you in February.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.